Hi, this is Janos, Reviewed Audio, and I'm continuing reviewing reviewers and about Peter and Terry's video. Where is it? I'm going to. Huh? Oh, I think I lost it. Where is it? Oh, here. I found it. So that's it. The the video full review about the Cube Audio Nanofar Mini and how they thought about the sound. So one of my what a few things that I noticed is that one of them is that when I'm listening to these videos, it sounds good, but I do not have nearly the experience that I have when I'm listening to my system live. It's really day and night. And there's just a warning for everyone that whatever you hear online from people publishing and putting up on YouTube is just a reflection on that system, and that reflection is greatly affected by how your reproduction system matches the recording system that was used to record the material. And also there's the microphone placement that's super critical. The type of microphone used, super critical. So for example, what I was noticing is that when I listen, like the bass is not even close to how good it is in real life, and I think that's because in Peter's recording system, and not just Peter's recording system, when you look at microphones for voice recorders and video recorders that people use to record for YouTube, usually you notice that they are really good down to 50 hertz and they have issues below 50 hertz. It's very few microphones that can do justice below 50 hertz. And and when that happens, when you have low frequencies like 30 hertz, 25 hertz, that really muddies up the sound in the 50 hertz range, and in that range where the recorder can record. And I noticed that with my videos too, that whenever I want to record how my big Altex system sounds, that does go down like crazy deep into the subsonic range, that totally trips the recorder, and it makes the mid-range sound really muddy and really incoherent, and nothing at all like it sounds in real life. And I did observe this effect on Peter's sound with the Nanofar Mini, that I think the recorder is not doing justice nearly for the bass that is present. So that's just one thing. So if you think that based on that video clip they can't do bass, no, they can do. It's just the microphone was unable to pick it up clearly. And let's say I just go through. I just made a little list how they describe the sound, how Terry and Peter described. They said full range, full blown, anchored foundation, and that's exactly how I would describe mine as well. It's a full range sound. I'm getting like here in this very room, when I listen to them, it's energizing the room. And there's very few audio systems ever that energize the room. Most of the time you just get some flat bass and there's some extension, but even if you get like really deep frequencies, you don't feel energized. You don't feel your skin, like the hair standing up. You don't feel like something building within you. It's amazing, and they can do that. The bass is just really, I would say, insane, but it's not insane. It's totally sane. It's just really awesome. But with any subwoofer, I never had this experience. I had experience with subs like pressurizing the room and booming and like kicking me in the chest and raping and violating me and just blowing my eardrums. But if you are into S&M, that's perfect. But that sort of presentation, when you have coherent bass, that's of the I would say, finest, highest quality, the Cube audio drivers, they do that. They do that. And you would not expect that from a single driver, and most single drivers can definitely not do that, but the Cube audios, they can do it. And that's because they were developed with that specific uh, function in mind. So one of the uh, keys that they used for the development is to bring the efficiency lower. So you will notice that it's in the low 90s, the efficiency for the Cube audio drivers. And when I tried it out, I was really beware of it, because I'm just going for higher and higher efficiencies, because that's when it gets more livelier. And under lively, I mean more lifelike, because in live you have the ultimate real dynamic range. And when your loudspeaker has a lower dynamic range, then it's compressing it. And even though there's like technically, even if you have compressed the dynamic range from the actual 112 dB per watt meter, that's what 100% efficiency is. If we drop it down to 1% efficiency, that's 92 dB per watt meter. And so in theory, if I use 100 times more watts, I'm getting 112 dB again. But what I noticed that when you are using more watts, then you are diluting out the music, and that's my experience. And many of my commenters, my viewers, you have observed the same effect as well. But there were viewers. One of the comments was the exact opposite, that he used a low efficiency driver with higher power amplification, and to him it sounded more dynamic than when he tried it, the same amp, with a high efficiency speaker. And so you see, there's no foolproof method, and you can find pros and cons, positive, negative experiences for every phenomena. Uh, but my experience is that with the amplifiers that I'm using, that they are crazy sensitive for higher efficiency speakers. And then it's like higher efficiency is like an explosion in the naturalness of sound. So that's why I was really skeptic that they will be able to provide a natural sound at first, because I'm dropping back to a low 90s in the efficiency. And so it's exactly the same efficiency as the speaker behind me. And but by the way, this is like a 91, 92 dB per watt meter, but it sounds really, really good. Even though it's such low efficiency in my eyes, because I'm used to the 100 plus dB efficiency in my downstairs system, and also in my void pipe. My previous driver was 96 dB per watt efficiency. So I was worried that now I drop 4 dBs from that, I'm going to lose a lot. However, that's not how it turned out, because even though there was that much efficiency lost, but the frequency extension is greatly improved, and then not just the frequency extension, but the handling of the frequency range. So that's one of the laws of physics, that if you want to have a wider frequency extension, you need to drop the efficiency. And I think Cube Audio have really found a sweet spot zone to have high enough efficiency, because this 91, 92 dB is, I think, in my experience, that's the magic zone where music starts to be alive, and it's different from artificial music. That's the jump. You need to reach that 1% efficiency level of 92 dB per watt meter, and if you reached that level, that 1% of your signal is converted to music, then you are hearing enough of the music for the brain to put it together as natural sound. And in the case of the FC8 uh, the driver that I'm using in my void pipe cabinet, it is giving me a really wide frequency band. How wide? And Ramsey was asking about it. Have I done measurements? And my answer is yes, I've done some sorts of measurements, but I will be doing more measurements, and I think that deserves a video in itself, so I'm not going to talk about that. But now I'm just going to come back to how Peter and Terry described the Nenufar Mini's sound. So they said it was like being on a holodeck. So for those of you who are not Star Trek watchers, holodeck is in the future a virtual reality room that projects artificial reality around you, and it's like totally like being there. And that's what they are saying. It's like projects. It's like you are there. You are in that reality. And I totally agree with Terry's and Peter's um, way of putting it. It's really like being on the holodeck compared to most other speakers. Yes, are there some that can do something like that? Yes, there are, but it's very few speakers. It's really rare. Most people never hear it in their entire lives, even if they're like audiophiles for a long time. It's like really rare that you have an experience that any speaker, any gear has that holodeck level presentation, and they do it. And I would say it's not just any holodeck presentation, but here when I set them up this room, my room becomes a real holodeck. And I mean that there's no sweet spot in the room. I can sit, I can walk, I can lay down on the floor, I can come here between the speakers, go wherever I want, and the holodeck stays. It's like there's a 3D image of the players in the room, and it stays even if I change positions. I think that is the holy grail of imaging, and it's been only very few times that I heard this effect. Actually, I and you can hear it to some extent, but to this crazy extent, I heard it only once before, and it was also with my void pipes, with my old Fostex drivers in my previous room, previous space where I lived 5, 6, 7 years ago. And when I sat down there, I also had that experience with the Fostex drivers, the FE204, by the way, which is now long ago obsolete. So you cannot sadly buy that driver. The new ones are kind of different. Maybe you might be able to replicate an experience like that with newer drivers. I don't know, not sure. Maybe there's a chance. But what I can say is that for that to happen, it's really hard to position the speakers. It's an art. It's a way of life. It's kind of like Bushido. You have to follow the samurai's code to get you that. And when I put the Cube Audio drivers in those speakers, it was easy. It was as easy setting them up to sound like that as setting any bookshelf speakers. It was not. It was, I would say, even easier to set them up in your room to have a wonderful full immersion 3D effect than any other speakers. I think this is also important for those of you who think about single driver speakers, and that for the majority of them, yeah, it's really hard to set them up, really hard to find the exact spot. For the Cube Audio driver, they don't care about it. You can set them wherever you want, and you will have a really good image, really good sound, and it's really easy to fine tune them. It's really like a walk in the park. Also, what they said, we have been listening to the system for 12 days and it's stunningly hyper realistic, but not the take off your ears way. Because most of the time, when reviewers tell you that it's hyper realistic, that's because the high frequency, so like like let's say from the 8 kilohertz to 20 kilohertz region, maybe the whole of it or parts of it or just certain peaks are blown up, like even like plus 10 dB or more. And then you will get this hyper realistic sound, but after 10 minutes you will have such listening fatigue that maybe next day you will have to go to the ER. It happened to me. I had such an experience, and that's why I had that experience, because the sound range had a really overblown peak in the high frequencies. And this is why a lot of people violently hate horn speakers, because most horn speaker manufacturers, the horn speakers you can buy mainstream, the compressor driver at the very top is EQ'd the F up in the skies, like often like 10 plus dB compared to the mid-range and the bass. And when people listen to it, oh my god, this is insanely good. But then they realize that, one, I have listening fatigue like crazy, especially if I crank the volume up, then my ears blow and it's gone. And second is that the bass is lacking compared to the highs and mids. And if you notice that you hear a horn speaker and I want to hear more bass, it doesn't have bass, the problem is it's not balanced, that the compression driver is not level with the mids and the bass, but it's blown up to the sky. Why is it blown up to the sky? So that the manufacturer can sell it to you as high efficiency loudspeaker. But what the brochure does not state, it's that the loudspeaker itself is not 98 dB per watt meter efficient, just the upper compression driver is 98 dB per watt dB efficient. The bass, the big unit, it's just maybe 89 dB efficient. So actually, if you would level it properly, so you would send it to Danny Ritchie to fix this speaker to you so it doesn't make your ears bleed, then he would bring down that sucker, the tweeter, the high compression driver, in level with the woofer, and then it turns out that it's just an 89 dB per watt meter speaker, despite having horns in it. So, and that's because for every loudspeaker, the Achilles heel is the bass, and you can't get around it. If you want bass at very high efficiency, you need cabinet the size of a refrigerator. And if a company is selling you speakers that are not like a refrigerator, and they say it's like close to 100 dB per watt meter efficient, and the bass goes really low, let's say to 30 hertz, then that's false advertising. Or they specify you have to put it in the corner or put it in the wall, and then they're using your room to horn load those speakers to give you the bass. But then you must keep them where they specify it, and then you will have that effect. But then of course you lose pinpoint imaging. So if you want to pull them out to have that image that you are used to, then you will lose the bass, and you have to send it to Danny Ritchie to fix the speaker so you get image and sound together. So that's the take off your ears explained in a roundabout way. Anyway, so they say many more things, and then I really agree with how they perceive, how they tell, how they talk about it, how excited they are, and I think it's something really astonishing, and I regard them as a technology on its own. So like if you think about like magnepans, horns, single driver speakers, then Cube Audio single driver speakers are like a technology that's different from any other single driver speaker I heard until now. And while the majority of single driver speakers, they have as a weakness the frequency extension and the upper mid-range peaks because of the visor cone colorations, the Cube Audio have these areas, the upper mid-range, it excels at upper mid-range. I never heard any multi-driver speaker that has as good upper mid-range as the Cube Audio driver, and also the lower extension and the high extension, like those tweeters that can do what the Cube Audio does to the upper registers of the sound. I can only think of the high quality large format compression drivers that can compete with them in the quality of how they reproduce the high frequencies. Apart from that, I cannot name a single tweeter that can hold a candle to the Cube Audio single drivers high frequency reproduction. And it's not necessarily because there's no good tweeters. There are excellent tweeters, but you have a problem that you have to mate it with the mid-range driver, and when you mate it, you need a crossover, and there's going to be differences in the colorations between the two, and those differences in their behavior, in their tonality, are going to disrupt the flow of music. So if you listen to orchestral music, if you listen to acoustic music, human voices, then it's really, really hard to get to that ballpark of naturalness and expressive sound that this single driver technology can bring. So thank you for chugging along with this video, and please like, subscribe, and I have Kintar over there, he's yawning. Maybe that's him saying, oh, just stop, come and scratch me. So bye bye.